It's a trap!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Contiengecy Plan Podcast, an all Admiral Akbar podcast.
It's a trap. Hold on. I don't think that's what we agreed on talking about here.
No Mon Calamari podcast? Specifically fish people?
Well, maybe someday when we run out of this book that we're reading, this series that we're reading.
Well, that's not going to happen. That'll take like 50 or so years, right?
Well, they did stop making them, you realize.
Sadly.
And they are no longer canon, so they will no longer make any, sequels or prequels to it.
That's true. All right, so we're not an Admiral Akbar podcast. We are a Star Wars reread podcast of, well, currently the New Jedi Order. We're diving through the New Jedi Order, currently in Vector Prime. This is Chapter 1, and what was the name of the chapter? It's kind of cool these things have subheadings, so...
The name of Chapter 1 is Fraying Fabric, and yeah, that is pretty neat because most books just don't do that anymore.
Well, that's why they were so cool. So yeah, they give us neat little taglines already. So fraying fabrics?
Correct.
All right, cool. So Chapter 1 here. My name is Jedi Master David, and with me as always is Darth Austin.
Hello, everyone.
So again, we're diving into Chapter 1 here today. I want to talk to you a little bit about, a couple things before that, but we will go ahead and we will go through that. So let's go ahead and start with our Jedi Council here. So how you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Oh, not too bad. Week's been actually kind of depressing week, honestly. A lot of, some bad news
Same
here
here.
and there, and just kind of weird. It's like weird. It's like first week of July now.
Yeah.
It's hot. It's hot here in Ohio, but
it's miserably hot.
Gosh, just been a weird start to the month, but we're working through that, I guess, best way we know how.
Just keep on trucking.
Yeah, exactly. I figured during this segment what we would do is look at some breaking news or some just Star Wars related news and kind of relay that a little bit to you. But first, Austin, how about you tell everybody about our social media presence?
Oh, quite a few things to talk about here. Let's see. Well, let's start by talking about where you can see this podcast. So
see
you can, well, exactly. You can see whatever backdrop we decide to put on it.
Well, not the,
for the YouTubes at least.
For the YouTubes, but yeah.
But for everyone else, you can hear us on Podbean, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, which is very superior to the other option, iTunes.
Dark side.
Light side.
It's clouding your
whatever.
judgment.
I see clearly.
Yeah, we'll be on all the major networks, Spotify, basically whatever we can put it on. So if you've got a phone, or I don't know, I guess you could listen to these on a computer or an iPad or whatever.
What's a
Note
computer?
2, or you literally have one, it's like right next to us.
Well, I was going to ask what it was.
Well, I think you know.
No, I'm not that young, thankfully.
But yeah, we are on all the major podcasting networks. So just make sure you subscribe to whichever one so you get it automatically downloaded onto your device.
Correct. And if you're on YouTube, which we hope that you like and subscribe and hit that bell if you are to get notifications.
Smash the likes, bro.
Smash that bell.
Yeah, okay.
Because we won't just be doing the podcast on there. We'll be doing quite a bit of extra content when we can. We'll be doing character bios, reviews of movies, other books in the Star Wars series.
Yeah, but again, all Star Wars themed.
Correct.
We are a solely Star Wars podcast, so,
Yes. No bend the knee stuff here.
all
None of
that thrones of games and weird.
Rings of Lords.
Yeah.
But we'll also have a Facebook page for you to check out. All your breaking Star Wars news that we might not get to on the podcast here. Memes. Got to have the memes.
He's a memer. I'm not, but he is.
Yes, I am. Daily memes, guaranteed. And we'll also be posting the links to all of the different .coms that will be posting these podcasts.
Yeah, we'll let you know when things come out via Facebook as well, just in case, I don't know, for some reason you don't get the notifications. But yeah, make sure you check out Facebook, hit that like for us, and feel free to leave your comments. In last week's mini episode, starter episode, we did go ahead and just say, hey, leave us your Star Wars stories. So yeah, if you guys have any Star Wars stories, how you got started out into the Star Wars franchise, let us know. You can send us a message, leave us a comment. Eventually we might create like a group, depending on, maybe once we reach a certain amount of likes. But yeah, leave us your stories and we'll read them on the podcast and, give specifically your name and your address. No, I'm just kidding. But
your social security number.
Well, hopefully.
Leave that too.
Hopefully. I mean, we got credit cards to open, right?
That's right. Now, tell me, where can they message us from?
Well, obviously Facebook. You can definitely drop us a line there. We both have access to that, so we'll both get in there. But also, if you would like to send us an email, for your novellas and your fanfics and everything that he'll read. I don't know. I'm a little
I'll tell him about it and he'll just ignore me the entire time. That's the plan anyway.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but if you want to send us an email, our email address here is tcplanpodcast@gmail.com. So you can go ahead and send us a little email. A couple avenues to get asked about. So, last thing. How about you let them know about a little bit about Patreon?
Yeah, so we're trying to make Patreon special, not just another normal one you'd see on all the YouTubers' channels. So what we'd like to do is give you a little bit of an RPG element there. We're going to have multiple tiers, and at the first tier, you will be a Padawan.
Great. You start off as a fresh young Padawan, ready to learn. That's where all the fun starts here on the Patreon page.
And that's also where you'll choose your path.
If you choose to go up any other tiers, you start to choose your path, light or dark.
Do you want to be trained by Master Jedi David over here, or would you like to learn to use a few special Force abilities like, say, I don't know, stuff you Jedis don't have, like lightning, choking people, all that good stuff?
Well, I mean, if you want to be evil, you can go to the dark side. If you want to be a force for good and awesome,
you go to the dark side.
Oh, jeez. It's like a setup. No, but in all seriousness, Patreon is fully for your benefit. We're going to have a couple of Patreon exclusive. There will at least be one Patreon exclusive podcast each month. There are also going to be Patreon exclusive videos on there as well. So more than likely, we're probably setting up where there will at least be two podcast/videos released per month on Patreon, just to kind of get you started, get you a little extra content. We also have some merchandise we're planning there too, some T-shirts. I'm a big fan of our logo. I actually think that looks super cool.
Kind of want to see that on a hat. Not gonna lie,
it would be sweet on a hat. It'd be sweet
maybe
on
a Rebel
shirt.
helmet someday.
Oh, yeah.
And also, as far as that extra content will be going, you'll also have a say in that because we'll be having votes at the end of videos for that. Say we're going to do a character bio. Well,
right.
Who do you want to learn more about? Do you want to learn more about Qui-Gon Jinn or Obi-Wan? Qui-Gon Jinn. Please pick Qui-Gon Jinn first.
But yeah, once we kind of start doing a few of those, we'll probably take 3 light side users, 3 dark side users, and then do some character bios on the one that you vote for, and we'll flesh that out a little bit more as we get along. But yeah, we got a lot of big plans for Patreon, and again, that's just a method to give something back to you for giving something to us, and of course, all that money just goes directly back into the podcast. Better equipment in the beginning. We're gonna set up a couple of goals here and there, but there are also going to be some giveaways as time goes by. But really, it's just building it up, building up the equipment here, making this little pirate ship the best little pirate ship it can be, or for better yet, the best Millennium Falcon it can be.
I was gonna say.
Well, I mean, we are space pirates a little bit too, so
like Django and Boba, perhaps might get that kind of ship going.
Maybe it's a little offensive name of that ship, though.
But it's still pretty
it's not,
damn cool ship.
We'll call it the PC Bounty Hunter ship.
Okay, are we gonna be that kind of podcast? All right.
Yes, very, very much so. But no,
Gotcha.
no. In all seriousness, we do appreciate any sort of support from you guys, because again, this podcast is all about you guys and getting this series that we love so much growing up back out into the spotlight and having your input, because we want to hear from you. So anything that you send to us, we will get to on the podcast.
And the big goal is to be noticed by Disney so we can get this back in canon. Okay, moving on.
Well, I mean, they are already paying us. I mean, the Disney checks are in the mail, right?
They're gone already. I bought a new truck.
He got the Disney checks before I was able to.
You get the next two. If you get there first.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Probably should have put that in a joint mailbox, not my personal one.
I didn't.
I questioned it, but yeah, live and learn.
Oh no, seriously, it's good. It's good time. So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of news here real quick in the beginning. So I try and get on YouTube and watch videos from time to time, and an interesting one came across the old YouTube a week and a half ago from Collider. So they had this whole premise, and they were the ones who specifically, like, this is Collider's breaking this news, that they had a source that was saying that Lucasfilms and Disney was going to be stepping back on production of the new spin-off movies, because we had word about a Boba Fett movie, which I thought, honestly, we'll talk about it, but I honestly thought it was a little odd. And then we also had word of an Obi-Wan movie, which I think everybody was waiting for, before Solo was announced. So,
and no spoilers there, but there's good setup for that movie, so I'm very excited for that.
Correct. No, this is a spoilers podcast. We will spoil everything for you. Spoilers. But no, first thoughts, Austin. So, Darth Austin. So,
correct.
So, what do you think of this? So, that, kind of the I don't want to say, Solo flopping, because in all actuality, when you really look at the numbers, it did make back its production costs. The marketing is probably high, but I think at the end of the day, after DVD sales, after toy sales, after the build up for just this movie, everything associated with it, I think it'll probably break even at this point. But obviously, break even is not what they want.
Right.
Now, it's not like another unfortunate movie that I actually like, Waterworld, which is considered one of the biggest flops of all time, Kevin Costner's classic Waterworld.
It wasn't a terrible movie either.
I actually really like it, but anyway,
it was expensive to make.
It really was a flop back in that time. They didn't even make anywhere close to their budget back, which was the problem.
Well, they had no merchandise sales or anything on top of that, so Star Wars always has that to fall back.
Yeah, that was like the early 90s or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't watch it when it came out. So
anyway, he might not have even been born.
True. Very true.
No, I can't remember. But anyway, so in the scope of of Solo being a flop, it's not. But could it lose money? Potentially. But obviously, with the successes of Rogue One, which did cross $1 billion, Force Awakens and Last Jedi crossing that $1 billion mark. Those were big successes. So this one, maybe not the biggest success, but honestly, one of the better movies that I've seen in a while. But yeah, I mean, do you think that Solo? Now, just in scope of this conversation, do you think Solo would be the cause of Disney and Lucasfilm saying, we're not going to make any more of these for a little bit?
It's a bit of a gray area there, honestly, I think, because as far as the movie itself goes, I thought it was a very good, well-directed, well-written movie. But at the same time, they can't base it on if they thought it was a good movie or not. They have to go by numbers, and the numbers weren't good. I was looking out of curiosity. I just watched it over the past weekend, so I'm a little behind. I can't compare it to what came out at the time, but
True.
The Incredibles 2 came out, and I believe that I want to say was double on opening week what Solo made.
Because Solo was like
a bigger
80...
fan base for Star Wars. Granted,
right.
I was excited about Incredibles 2. I grew up with the first one. I wanted to see it.
Sure.
But when you think of how loyal the fan base of Star Wars is, that's pretty disappointing. And I think you have to look beyond that movie to see why. Because
right.
there were a lot of people. Han Solo is one of the most iconic and favored characters. It's not like this was about, Admiral Akbar, where people like to make fun of him, but they're not really a fan. This was one of the biggest characters, so
Right.
it should have gotten a lot better
For sure.
opening week numbers.
And I think when you're talking about numbers, Solo made, I believe it was a little over 84 million, and The Incredibles 2 was
180.
Was it
180.
that much?
It's over double. 180 opening.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I do know that it was significantly higher. So yeah, that's a big concern. But now, do you think it's Solo, or do you think it's a backlash from The Last Jedi?
I've heard nothing amazing about The Last Jedi in all the reviews I've watched and people's personal opinions of it. A lot of people I know still haven't seen it that were big Star Wars fans.
Yeah. Well, you know,
And that's based on personal opinion alone, just what you hear. It's not
for sure.
It's not, like when Force Awakens came out, I watched it on opening night.
Yeah.
That was a big one for me, and a lot of people did, but I think that it's dropping off rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, by the numbers, The Last Jedi did well, but I think that there were a lot of critical reviews about it, and that there are some things that I possibly would have changed if we were talking about from a storyline standpoint. But here's the thing about Star Wars fans. It seems like, it seems like what we get is you'll get a film, and we'll start with The Force Awakens. They say, I want something that's kind of like the old Star Wars for that nostalgia. And then you get a lot of people saying, well, you know what? That was just a carbon copy of New Hope or something. And so they're angry that it's a carbon copy. And then you have the group that says, I want something new. The Last Jedi was something different. But I actually still heard people say, well, that's just a carbon copy of Empire Strikes Back, which I don't think it was.
No, not even close.
Well, I mean, you can make some arguments, but I don't personally feel it. But at the same token, it was something different. It was something new. And then you get a lot of people that, well, no, I don't like it. And I think that a lot of Star Wars fans don't necessarily know the direction they want to go in right now. And it's tough. You had, and again, the point of this podcast was going back through and rereading, some of the old canon, old canon. It was loose canon, but the old extended universe series. And those are stories that I remember very well and I liked. I think maybe if we're, getting away from some of the, the using Vong, I don't know how that would translate to screen, but there are a lot of the family elements that I would have really liked to have seen in the new movies. But, getting back around to Solo and then subsequently our original topic, I don't think that Solo had anything to do with it. I think that it's less than stellar showing probably caused Disney to pause. But, they have to understand that there is a decent large, well, I don't want to say large, but a decent population that is vocal, a very loud vocal populace that says The Last Jedi it's not good, or it's not right in some way. So I don't know. I don't want to drag this on too much, but if Disney is truly making other plans or changing their plans, we'll see. But I will say this, and I know we talked about it. Didn't Solo feel like really soon after The Last Jedi?
Almost painfully so, honestly. Here's the thing. A lot of people say that it's just too much, too fast, too much Star Wars, too much Bee Gees. Push back on the Bee Gees. But if it's good quality content, it's like getting into the topic of a YouTuber who posts daily content versus weekly.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of quantity. It's a matter of quality. And
right.
I won't get into Last Jedi, but as far as Force Awakens to Rogue One to Solo, I've seen improvements every time. Mm-hmm. And I really don't consider the timeline. Now, one thing I would say that Disney has kind of dropped the ball on with Solo is marketing.
Yeah, I remember the teaser trailer came out, and if you want to see one of my reactions and you want to check out another podcast, check it out after us, though, because we're
better.
I wasn't going to say
No, I didn't say that.
They're my friends. They're my friends.
I
but,
don't know them, so I'll say we're better.
There you go. No, but Rebel Watch podcast. You can check those out. Check them out on YouTube and all the major podcasting networks that we're on as well. Good guys. I did a reaction to the teaser trailer that hit during the Super Bowl. Yeah, during the Super Bowl, we literally watched it. We were watching the Super Bowl. It hit, and then we immediately did a reaction. So if you want to look that up, check out Rebel Watch. But I actually thought that the teaser trailer was not very good. I was actually kind of worried about it. But then when they came out with the full-length trailer a little while longer, I was like, okay, I'm fine. This looks great. So you're right. A lot of the marketing wasn't necessarily great, and I don't really remember seeing much in the way of commercials aside from what was it, the Kia? It was a car company, Nissan or Kia?
One of them did a Star Wars, and I have cable, but I don't actively watch cable anymore, so I couldn't give a lot of input on that.
I don't even have cable anymore. I have,
but
I have a streaming service.
Advertisements on, say, YouTube videos and Facebook and things like that, pretty weak. And if you look back to when we were growing up, Star Wars movies were coming out. Of course, you had plenty of trailers, but you had... a Star Wars movie was an event.
Yeah, and we talked about in our first episode, our stories and how much merchandise, putting the faces on Pepsi cans. It was just it was literally
McDonald's
saturated.
Happy Meals, and there was always a video game tied in with every movie, and you had a lot of stuff that you just don't see anymore.
Do you want a Han Solo video game?
Well, you know what? They almost came out with a really similar one not too long ago that was based on a smuggler. So if they had rebranded that to Solo, I think it could have helped box office, honestly.
I don't know. Maybe.
To me, it's just, you can't just ride off the name. You have to put work into advertising for it and getting the merchandise.
Right.
If you look at Walmart right now, how much do you think you're going to find that is specifically Solo merchandise in the toy sections?
For sure. But at any rate, we'll kind of wrap up this little conversation. I don't want it to go too long. It's just giving more credence to those crazy kids at Collider.
But I don't think that it'll happen, personally. I think that's all rumor. I really don't think they'll back out of those movies.
We'll see. Will they back out? No, but there is some speculation that maybe the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie could go to the streaming service. To be honest, I have no idea why. I would watch it, but I don't really need a Boba Fett story so much. I like Boba Fett fine, but I'm not really huge into Mandalorians and all that stuff. It's interesting, but it's not really for me.
I think a better trilogy would have been Solo, Maul, and Obi-Wan, personally.
Well, you're just spoiling things all over people's faces there, but no.
I did not. You just did.
I know, but honestly, there has to be a follow-up to Solo. For those of you who watched it, there has to be a follow-up, and there will be a follow-up. I would imagine what that is or how that comes out. We'll see. But we'll go from there. I'm going to cut this off here because we could probably ramble on for days on this.
One thing I'll say, as far as follow-ups go, I think you're going to see something closer to what Netflix did with the Marvel's Defender series, where they don't really have a lot of second seasons or second movies. I think you're going to see all the movies try and tie in characters together, so you get to see a little bit more of them, but not as the main character.
Sure,
that's just personal opinion, though.
Yeah, I could see that, and we'll obviously see as time goes by. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on along. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So we'll go ahead and move on along to the reread here. So again, we're looking at Chapter 1, Fraying Fabrics. We'll kind of do a little synopsis here, and then kind of work through it as we go through here. So basically, the big thing here is we start out with our princess Leia. They're aboard the Jade Saber. This is the ship of Mara Jade, who is Luke's wife, and we will do some characterization, a bio on Mara. Very important character. And always a fun one was Kira from Solo. Is she Mara Jade? Does she turn into Mara?
I hope not.
Hey, anything to get Amelia
why
Clarke
not?
in more movies.
Yeah, I won't argue with that, but she could also be, we won't get into that. So, because that timeline wouldn't work with Jaina.
I know, it's weird. But anyway, so they're aboard the Jade Saber. I thought this was funny. So the new shuttle, her brother Luke, so Luke had built this for Mara. So, what is Luke just building stuff now?
Did he get a lot of money from, helping destroy the Empire? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, he's an important dude, but I mean, at the same token, he's just off building ships. Did he get his engineer's degree on Coruscant or something?
Well, you could do a lot with force power, so I guess you could just literally tear bits and pieces off of a ship graveyard and
I
build it in
suppose.
5 seconds if he knew what he was doing.
Who knows? But no, he's obviously mechanically inclined. I mean, we see that in A New Hope and along other series. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. He just personally built her a ship. Would you rather have a wedding ring or a ship?
Well, that's an easy decision for me.
All right. So we're introduced to Leia again. We're introduced to Mara and Jaina Solo.
Jaina at 16 years old, which I'm trying to figure out the timeline, but it can be a little muddled. So
at some
we'll go
point,
ahead. We won't worry about that.
we're timelines are always a little bit muddled in the Star Wars universe. But yeah, she's 16 years old, categorized as having a mature and calm demeanor of a veteran pilot. So as we go through the series, I won't name drop a whole lot of names. We're going to go through a lot of the children that are present here. But so Jaina's she's a pilot, huh? A little after Dad,
Yeah, sure.
Let's see
and
here.
Grandpa, for that matter.
Let's not talk about Grandpa. Grandpappy will come back as the story goes along. So with long dark hair and brown eyes contrasting sharply with her smooth and creamy features. So she's emo.
Sounds like it to me. Sure.
Nah,
Doesn't act very emo. Spoiler alert. And by the way,
these are written in the late 90s. So
this is 21 years after the destruction of the second Death Star.
Good call. Yeah, good call to set up because the Force Awakens was God, how many years was that? 27. We'll have.
Was it that? I don't think it was that. I think it was 20.
I think
it was like an anniversary, like a 20.
Well,
or 25,
it was set. It was set longer than the series of events in A New Jedi Order. You guys can let us know. I'm sure you're more knowledgeable than us anyway, and we're conducting the podcast. But okay, so we
love our listeners.
Oh, we love you guys. So we're in the Jade Saber. Mara and Jaina are at the helm. Leia is kind of a little bit lamenting to herself here, considering her own life now. A diplomat, a bureaucrat, a mediator, always trying to calm things down, always working for the peace and prosperity of the New Republic. So she's still very involved in the New Republic, as she pretty much always will be. But she's a mediator. She's a diplomat now.
A little different from her younger years, and she thinks about that quite a bit in this, where she traded all the droning of the bureaucrats and misses the noises of blaster fire and lightsabers igniting.
Yeah, that was actually a cool little line, So she's actually kind of wanting almost to have at times that rebellion feel to her world, which is just not quite there. It's interesting. Fighting the fight and winning the fight, but what happens after the war is won, so to speak.
And that's where you get into that little gray area where are you fighting for peace or fighting to fight? Because
there you go.
She has the peace that she wants, but is it enough to make her happy?
Yeah, so that's an interesting sort of conundrum for her. But so again, Mara and Jaina are at the helm. Interesting little point here. As Leia looks over them, she has a mild twinge of jealousy? ? Jaina is Mara's basically Padawan learner, her student. Now, the way in which the Jedi are instructed right now at this current timeline is different than what it what it was in the old days. In the old days, you had a Jedi Master, you had the Padawan. They basically took the road together. They traveled, they quested, whatever you want to call it, sent on missions. But now with Luke, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but, with Luke's handling of the Jedi, loose Jedi Order. I don't want to say Jedi Order right now because it's not quite that.
It's not quite an order. It's really just a master and a lot of students at the time because there aren't many other masters to help him.
Correct. Well, he basically is the only true master right at this very second.
I believe Mara is considered one at this point, but you couldn't compare their power levels.
So again, the way in which these students are taught is different. Now, at this point, Janna is out with Mara away from the academy on Yavin. And, Leia realizes, like, Mara's not a substitute mother. She's more like a big sister. So they have this big sister, little sister kind of relationship going. They're able to laugh. They're able to joke. But Jaina specifically requested that Mara be her teacher, not Luke.
Correct, which wouldn't have flown in the old Republic, but things are different now.
Yeah, the students weren't really picking their masters. It was a lot more dictatorial. Kind of in a way. And we will talk further later on about, in my opinions and yours, how or why the Jedi Order failed, why it had to fail potentially, and kind of the rebuilding process, because there's a lot there.
Yes.
So let's kind of continue on here because I don't want to get too deep into that. Is there any real descriptors of Mara said in here? They talk about her green eyes. I don't really, unless I'm completely.
I think the only other thing they try to point out is that Leia still has a fire in her eye, but it's starting to change a bit, and Mara is still a very fierce person, still fighting the fight.
Correct. Yeah.
Unlike Leia, and
Leia's fighting the fight, but not in the same
way.
And she might have a blaster under her coat.
I would be surprised if she didn't.
Well, and I'll tell you, moving on here a little bit, so she might have a blaster in her coat, but she also has a bodyguard. And let's see, their name is
Balpur, I believe. Balpur. We are going to butcher some pronunciations, just fair warning.
Intentionally.
Yes. So
he is a Nagori. And I actually want to stop here just for a second and do a little bit of. I did a little deep dive on the Naguri for you here, just a little bit, because there's a passage in here, and actually, what was that? Okay, so
next page, I believe.
No, page. No, I found it. So let's see. All the Naguri would do anything Leia asked of them. He would jump off a cliff into the hot end of an ion engine for her. So at that point, it's like, really?
Why?
Really? So here's just a tiny bit of backstory. So 5 years after the death of the Emperor, Admiral Thrawn, and then we're dealing with canon and non-canon because now we have the Thrawn series. Those are written by Timothy Zahn, I believe. But in this old world, so we had Admiral Thrawn here, and he ordered the Naguri to capture and kidnap a pregnant Princess Leia. Now, Leia, being the smart and resourceful woman that she is, used the fact that she is Darth Vader's daughter to convince Naguri to leave the Empire's service. Now, the Naguri were used by the Emperor. They're basically extremely skilled assassins. Like an assassin, almost an assassin race.
And they do depict that fairly well in the first few pages of the book, too.
Yeah. So she convinces the Naguri basically to switch sides, convinces them that the Empire has been lying to them, misusing them, so on and so forth. And they flip. They flip sides. And interestingly enough, one of Thrawn's Naguri bodyguards kills him. And then after he dies, Leia becomes the new master of the Naguri. And effectively, they have this devotion to her and her family. Her family, too, is pretty well revered in this group of people. And, the New Republic does kind of rehome them. Is that there's got to be another word, but rehome them basically. I mean, they. I don't know. Anyway, we'll go with rehome, recolonize, something like that.
Colonize, I feel like it's a fairly good term for that.
Yeah, rehoming is for like a dog, or a cat.
Yep.
But anyway, so I think that there's kind of like a loose and basically really suspicious feeling among a lot of the people within the New Republic. There's actually a passage about, some of the senators, they wanted Leia to stop using them as bodyguards, and of course, her opinion is well, yeah, why? What's the point?
They're fiercely loyal, and they are better fighters than
correct, and they've
any rebel really,
and they've proven themselves on multiple occasions. So that was just a little bit about that, because they kind of had this passage about this guy, and it seemed interesting to me, so I wanted to just get a little bit here, especially that part about jumping off a cliff. It just seemed really odd. So okay, whatever, there we go.
Would have been nice to have them during the rebellion is all I'm gonna say.
Well, yeah,
I understand why you couldn't, but just saying.
There's a lot of things like that. So anyway, let's move on here. So again, they are going to basically, there are two planets here, and the substance behind her trip is we have the planet Asarian and Ramamul. Is that
yes,
what we're agreed upon?
That's how I would say it.
Gotcha. So these two planets, they orbit each other, and I think it said like once every 10,000 years or something, they come very close, and that's when the conflicts tend to escalate. Basically, Asarian is a wealthy, luxurious, well-to-do kind of planet, and Ramamul is basically a mining planet and barely habitable, a desert, a wasteland. And there was some talk about the Asarians sending prisoners to these mines in order for to work them, and basically Asarian just profits off of it, and Ramamul is essentially left nothing.
It's basically a small comparison to the Empire and how they use planets.
Yeah, well, oh God, could we get into talking about how the Empire's used a ton of planets? So, they're going to kind of lead this mediation between the two planets. There's quite a bit of anti-New Republic feeling. So they're not necessarily going into...
it is very hostile negotiations.
There you go, hostile. Well, those negotiations were short.
Very.
Oh, let's see here. We also have a Mon Calamari battle cruiser called the Mediator that is basically watching
ship in the New Republic fleet.
And this is a ship that's basically watching over Leia, essentially from a distance. We also have a little bit of banter from C-3PO. They're kind of talking.
A little.
Well,
like 3 pages of it.
Yeah, I know. He goes on. But basically, they're talking about kind of the military quotation mark might of these planets. And what was the specific line? Said something about ground. They're
mainly ground-based combat, especially
missiles.
Was it Ramamul? That was pretty much all ground-based combat.
Yeah, there was something about Asarian having maybe possibly a small space force, but probably nothing that would even come close to what we would think. But yeah, C-3PO was going on and on about the whole missiles that can hit each other from close distances, though.
They're just technically not at their closest point yet, Mara.
Yeah, there you go. So this chapter is basically, I think, should be subheaded "Shut Up, C-3PO."
I agree.
Good.
And
times.
they basically say Mara and Leia say in unison, pretty much for him to shut up. Maybe 4 times, I think.
Correct. So there was a little tidbit I wanted to point out here. So after this talk, Jaina says, "You're expecting a fight?" And the line was, and neither Leia nor Mara missed the sparkle in her eye. So she's 16 years old. She's obviously force sensitive. She's learning from Mara Jade, who has, maybe a little bit more cavalier than perhaps Luke.
Not to mention her father.
Yeah, and obviously her bloodline, being Han Solo and Leia, that sparkle in her eye. Keep that in mind as we venture through this series. I think that's important. Right now, maybe she wants a fight. She wants to prove herself.
Just like any Skywalker, really, when you think about it.
True. So, Leia says, the mediator will keep him behaving, just kind of trying to brush it off. And then, a little bit later, we finally come upon the name of the leader of the Romumu, the current leader, Nom Anor. And basically, Leia pretty much straight up calls him a tyrant. She's like, I can't begin to give you a full list of tyrants like Nom Anor I've dealt with. And of course, C-3PO has something to say about that.
Yes.
I can give you that list.
Multiple times he tries to give that list.
Again, shut up, C-3PO.
But for some reason, Mara seems a bit more, I don't want to say intimidated by Nom, but
there's a reason,
maybe a form of respect, or maybe she's just experienced something terrible from him that Leia can't imagine yet.
As we get on in the chapters, we will understand a little bit more about her apprehension with this man. And once we get way further down the line, we'll understand a lot more. But, again, we're in the beginning stages. No spoilers for later on. We're already spoiling this chapter. So now, another thing we need to point out here. So, yeah, and here's a specific line where she says, Leia's like, I've seen his type often. And Mara replies, not like him, but she says somewhat softly. And
with
suddenly,
a weakness in her voice.
Correct. Now, then we start to talk about Mara is actually very sick. She has a rare disease. It says that it had killed dozens of others, and against which the best doctors in the New Republic have proven completely helpless. So you're in a technological time. The best doctors in the New Republic have proven helpless.
And only 2 people have been able to even survive this long, her and someone else who clearly isn't going to survive much longer.
Yeah, they didn't give a name. They said the only other person being studied intently on Coruscant was fast dying. So this is some sort of, they say it's like some sort of molecular disorder. So we'll have more about that in the next couple chapters, but she's sick. And essentially her mastery of the Force
is the only thing
keeping
her alive.
Yeah, it's the only thing keeping her alive.
Which was really the reason I say that she's the only one you could really consider a master in this new Jedi Order.
Yeah,
on top of Luke.
I think though, when we get a little bit more in her personality, so much was made of like, Anakin being kind of wild when he was younger, and the whole reason he wasn't a master was really he never learned to control himself, among distrust in the council. But the same could have been said about a young Obi-Wan. He didn't have complete mastery of himself, and I think in a lot of cases, Mara definitely has a great understanding and mastery of the Force, but not necessarily herself completely. But yes, I would agree. She's up there on the scale. There
aren't many options, so it's not difficult to be second best to Luke right now.
Oh, well, that's very true. So now we get into a little action. Incoming ships, Jaina announced. There are 4 ships coming straight at the Jade Saber. And let's see here. I think they actually identified the race.
They do. They are
Rodians.
From Osarian First Fleet.
Well, no, the Osarians had hired Rodians.
Correct.
Okay. So
Correct.
mercenaries.
Correct. Yep.
Basically mercenaries, and one of them called Grappa. You come with us to Osa Prime. So the whole thing is Leia is actually wanting to meet with Nom Anor on Romumu first. However, the Osarians are saying, you'll come meet with us. We'll send our mercenaries because
we don't want you to side with him.
And I think that's the big thing. I actually think that the Osarians are pretty afraid of this guy. And
keep in mind, there are no loyalties right now. So both are a little bit scared of what the New Republic is going to do, how they decide to move forward.
So then Leia, wily as always, says, lose them.
Oh, dear me, as CPO remarks.
Exactly. So strap in and get going. there was, I want to say, okay, so Grappa comes back. If you run, we shoot you down. Let's see. So Mara identifies the actual class of ship, a Z-95 Headhunter. And then she fires back, can't shoot what you can't catch, and off they go. And it also alludes to, you know, this little shuttle here, the Jade Saber has some pretty powerful engines. It's great
Correct.
at maneuvering. So this is something that is going to outrun potentially these ships. But so a little bit here in this chapter, they do talk about them dancing around, you know, the Rhodian mercenaries here a little bit.
And you do get to see into the glimpse of Jaina's abilities as a pilot and her passion for it.
Yeah, correct. You know, basically Mara says, Jesus, take the wheel.
Pretty much.
And just lets her go. And she's a natural. She's a natural pilot, you know, like her bloodline. I mean, because even...
Both, really, when you think about it. She's got a lot of good pilots in her bloodlines.
Well, I mean, yeah, Han, great pilot. To the point where you could almost wonder if he was force sensitive, although he doesn't believe in those hokey religions. Yep. But, you know, and then obviously Luke, great pilot. Grandpappy Vader, great pilot. So yeah, she has that in her blood, and and obviously being a Jedi herself, you know, she knows how to fly a ship.
And they do mention how she uses force powers to kind of hone herself and focus as she's flying.
That's actually something a good thing you brought that up. So one thing that I always thought was funny in The Force Awakens. Okay, we have spoilers. You know, one of the last scenes where Rey duels Kylo. And she all of a sudden just snaps and she knows how to duel. Why? Because the Force guides her. Correct. She doesn't have to be a master swordsman. The Force augments strength. It augments flexibility. It augments reaction time. The Force, if you allow it to flow through you and use you in a way, penetrate you, it does. You know, if you allow it to do its thing and you just kind of give in and let the Force do its job, you can do
essentially
unimaginable things.
Which I believe is a good example of...
Could you jump into a sun?
You could.
And
the sun would jump into you at that point.
God, get it.
But a good example of that would be Mace Windu with Vapod, letting dark force energy flow through him. He's essentially invincible at that point.
Oh, don't you worry. We'll talk about about old Mace as time goes by. So
you mean Snoke?
Whatever. Shut up with your Snokes. Okay, here. So, you know, Jane is doing her thing. There was also a little line in here where Leia thought to herself, her daughter's a woman now.
Yes, I like that.
And with all the grit of her father and mother combined. So you're basically dealing with a force of nature here. If she's truly her father and mother combined, whoa, you're in for trouble.
That's barely getting into her bloodline's abilities.
Correct.
It's not like Leia. I mean, she was force sensitive, but nowhere near her grandfather or brother. So.
Well, I think in Leia's case, I think she's more force sensitive than people give her credit for. But her problem is she was never properly trained.
Correct.
Now she does have some training. Luke does does give her some training, and
I believe she only ever attained Jedi Knight status.
To be honest with you, I'm not sure if she ever actually was given that status or not. But it's something we'll get into as time goes by. But she's obviously force sensitive, but we'll kind of have to come back to that at another point. Well. So
also funny when Mara tries to give some suggestions to Jade on how to fly.
Yeah,
she's rarely interrupted by her flying.
she really wasn't giving too much credence to that. Now, I do want to go ahead and jump a little bit here. So obviously we have this kind of, it's not a space battle, but the space chase. All of a sudden, though,
it does become a bit of a space battle.
All of a sudden, though, an X-Wing comes out of nowhere. And who is that? Leia asked. A Jedi.
Mara and Jaina said together.
So here's one thing. I love hearing about Jedi. I love reading about Jedi. The first time I watched the movies, what enamored me the most? Well, Han Solo and just being a badass, and the lightsabers and Jedi lore.
Correct.
So now the thing is like in new canon, in your Force Awakens, in your Last Jedi, there really aren't Jedi anymore.
No, it's pretty much just like A New Hope, honestly. You have very few.
Basically, yeah. But now we're in this book, and again, this is why I kind of really like these. We have Jedi.
Yeah.
We have an order of Jedi. We have Jedi pilots. We have Jedi doing their own thing. And
it's like watching episode 2 and 3, really. You get so many
pretty much
flavors of what it is to be a Jedi, all the different powers.
Correct. And as we read
fighting
a few
styles.
Right. And as we read a few more chapters, we'll get more in depth into some of the Jedi and some of their agendas, because it is important. So we'll get that out there. But anyway, yeah, so the X-Wing flashes by them and basically starts cutting down these Marauders.
Which Jaina hadn't even tried to do at that point. She was not trying to kill any of these people.
Yeah, they were just trying to evade. And why was that?
Not really sure what kind of weaponry they have on that ship, actually.
I'm sure, yeah.
I'm sure Luke would have given her something, but...
I am sure that they have some sort of weaponry. Oh, let's see here. I was just trying to skim a little bit here. So essentially, after the Marauders are destroyed, they head back to the Mediator. And who was the commander of that ship, Oz?
By the way, before we get to that point, I just wanted to speak quickly on Leia mentioning Mara's sickness and how poorly that was received. Mara is a very singular type of person. She really doesn't want help from people. She doesn't want to let people in. So
yeah, literally the line was, I just caught where you were coming from. A reminder that Leia was intruding on a private place for Mara. A place she had explicitly instructed all of her friends, even her husband, not to go. This was a personal journey for her.
Correct.
So yeah, good call. That's a good call.
And then to answer your question, it's Commander Akdul.
There we go. Yep, Commander Akdul, a Mon Calamarian with large, probing eyes, a fish-like face, and salmon-colored skin. Maybe some butter. Oh, wait.
Now I'm hungry. No lunch.
Need some seafood. Anyway.
Time to go Red Lobster.
So they come aboard the ship, and they're interested in who this Jedi, because they didn't know. They didn't know who the Jedi was until they got on here. But it looks like Jaina was the first one to identify him as Worth Skitter. Worth Skitter is a human Jedi Knight who was under the tutelage of Luke on Yavin 4. Not a whole lot that I was able to research about his earlier life. He's blonde.
Yeah, he's blonde and he acts like Han Solo quite a bit. That's about all you get to know. That's actually kind of good. And basically, so Leia's pissed. Very.
She's talking to Akdul. Why did you send them out? Leia snapped. And the commander's like, what?
It's a trap.
It's a trap. I didn't do anything. So the line was, why do you assume that Worth Skitter flew out at my command?
Because you're the commander.
Correct. But it basically implies that Worth, I don't know. I'm kind of calling him Worth. I don't know. But basically, this is kind of an early indication at some of how the Jedi are operating right now. They're not really under the command of anybody. There's no Jedi Council.
Correct.
They don't really answer to the Republic. So
I don't know if you could really compare all Jedi to Worth, because he's obviously not one to take orders.
We'll talk about it a little bit more in the next. I don't know if it's the next chapter or the chapter after that, but there's a little bit more on sort of the agendas of some of the Jedi out there. But we'll get more to it.
And this is actually a pretty big event.
Yeah. Now Worth actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Poe. This is actually kind of like a Poe Dameron kind of thing here, because Leia's pissed, but then he's grinning. He's got a smile on his face. She says, "Did you have a little fun out there?" More than a little. So he's kind of an arrogant guy.
Yep.
But fun for me, and not for the Rhodians. And so Leia says, "And the cost of your fun?"
Which is what I was getting at. This
There
is
you
a
go.
very important moment.
I knew we'd
for-
get there.
Probably for a few books to come, honestly, I would say.
It's going to have some repercussions, but Leia is basically going over the cost of this action. You basically killed these. I don't want to call them emissaries, but they were sent by the Asarians to bring Leia for this negotiation. They just wanted to talk first, and Wuth, slipped in there. He thought he was doing a good thing. He thought he was saving Leia and Mara and Jaina and all them. But what he wound up doing was essentially causing more strife.
Possibly causing a war in a way.
Yeah, exactly. So, he said, Wuth says they were attacking you, 6 of them. They were trying to bring us down to Asarian. So, he's getting chided here. Leia's not happy. She shouldn't be happy. Wuth kind of did something kind of stupid here. He flew in, guns cocked, and his mind unloaded. So it is what it is, but it's going to have some repercussions here. And Leia knows this. She's a diplomat. She understands how certain moves on a chessboard can have adverse effects.
Correct. And this, she even states, will set them back a year.
Right.
In diplomatic actions to deal with this issue.
Right, and kind of the end of this kind of exchange, as he goes off. I did not know that Jedi Skitter would prove so. Akdul paused, searching for the right word. He says intractable. Okay, I misread it, but intractable. And then Leia says stubborn. You mean? However, she does say maybe Anor has met his match.
Yes. And interesting enough, he even says he has no real authority over this Jedi.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll get more into the structure because we really do. It's an important part of this book and really subsequently the series and how the Jedi are viewed, how they act, and just kind of how everything pans out. So finally here, there's a last little kind of chat. Well, actually, no, wait. There's a couple. Yeah, I kind of forget how some of these chapters are really short. Oh, here's the story I was talking about earlier. I was telling you about this. I was like, it's got to be later.
The Red Knights.
So, there's a little subsection here within the chapter. We have we got C9PO, a protocol droid. It's copper coloring tinged red from the constant blowing dust of ramen It's like a
ramen noodle.
Yeah, ramen noodle. There we go. So we have a protocol droid down on Ramen Mool, and essentially here's the thing. So Nominor has created a fanatical following, and we have they're called the Red Knights of Life,
and they are essentially on a crusade to wipe out pretty much all forms of technology.
They want to return to, quote, a simpler life is what they're being preached about. But yeah, so poor little C9PO here basically pulled apart.
Correct. And
I mean,
people being beaten that are driving speeders.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
they were beating the speeders and beating the people who drove the speeders, which was ridiculous.
Essentially saying, walk to your destination. It's like, well, that's
right.
That's easy to say, but we don't have these creatures to ride on like you.
Correct. The last line here, C9PO was glad that he wasn't programmed to experience pain. So this
makes you wonder what droids are.
Hey, somebody might have had some perverse thought there. Nobody knows. So, again, this is what's happening on Ramen Mool under Nam Anor's guidance. So then we jump back to Leia. She's still kind of riling against old Worth here. And then there's a little line on here. Why does Nam Anor hate the Jedi? What do they have to do with the struggle between Asarian and Ramen Mool? I never even heard of these planets until you mentioned that we'd be coming here. So the significance of these planets within the New Republic is not very high, but they have a hatred of Jedi, which we'll get to the real reason later.
Interested to see why.
Yeah, I mean, she kind of has an explanation, but we'll get to the actual reason after a while. So, Leia replied, the Jedi have nothing to do with this struggle, or at least they didn't until Woo Skitter's antics. So old Skitter,
For the
man.
millionth time,
But
you messed up.
But basically, Mar adds here that Nominor hates the Republic, and he hates the Jedi as a symbol of the New
I
Republic.
think what he really hates is just structure and peace in general.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of that, and I think we get a little tidbit of him in here too. But it goes deeper. But obviously, as we read past, I don't want to spoil anything too highly here, but I could. Let's see here. So, is there anything Nominor doesn't hate? Don't take him lightly, Mara warned, and she's warning yet again. Religious cry to abandon technology and machines, look for truth in natural elements and life of the universe. It actually sounds kind of good to these miners because essentially they're just worked to the bone. So maybe
They're
return
slaves
to
in a way when you think about it. They
Right.
might have speeders, they might have a life, but they are essentially slaves to another planet.
So this sort of zealot outcry it doesn't really sound bad to them. Oh, let's see here. I do want to jump to one little line here as well. So Leia. Well, I'll just read this little thing here. So, and with the Jedi Knights scattered throughout the galaxy, and so many of them following their own agendas, Nominor might just find plenty of ammunition to add to his arguments. And Leia adds grimly, "I'm glad that my brother is thinking of reestablishing the Jedi Council." Now that's interesting. This paragraph is actually very interesting to me. So, there are Jedi Knights. However, they're scattered through the galaxy, and they're following their own agendas. And Luke is attempting to reform the Jedi Council. Not the Order, but the actual council. So a council of, I would assume...
Master Jedi.
If you can...
If there are enough.
Yeah, if you have enough masters. But it makes mention to these knights. They have their own agenda. They're out there doing their own thing. They're not under one guidance, which, unfortunately, is going to play bad for them a little bit here in the interim and kind of make them less sympathetic to the rest of the galaxy.
And it's kind of interesting to see this progression in the entire series of Star Wars from the prequels, where they are essentially the police force of the galaxy. They're highly respected.
Yep.
They have a lot of pull in both politics and just day-to-day living, to being completely wiped out and being essentially, in a way, the same as the Star of the Rebel Alliance. Just a few people trying to fight back, and just interesting to see them have such hatred and judgment, even though the only example a lot of people alive right now have of the Jedi is Luke, which should be a very good example of
but I mean,
why the Jedi are a good thing.
Luke so much has always been a legend. And legends sometimes you can poke cracks in, but we'll get more into that. Let's see here. Let's run through a little bit more. Let's see.
Talk a bit about.
Well, here's one part I wanted to. Sorry. This is something Mara says. If we can't bring some sense of order to the galaxy, particularly to isolated planets like Asarian and Ramamul, then we are no better than the Empire. Wasn't it always kind of the Empire that was like, we have to bring this order to the galaxy?
Correct.
We'll get into Mara's backstory later. Yeah. But Leia insisted we're better than the Empire. Jaina then says, not in Nom Anor's eyes. So that's interesting. But again, Mara's going in here. Again, she keeps bringing this up. He's the strangest man I've ever met. Given her past exploits with notorious sorts like Jabba the Hutt. Oh, that's good. But, she's issuing this warning again and again. This is a strange man. This is there's something off about this. But she actually does say this here. So even when I tried to use the Force to gain a better perspective on him, she paused, a blank.
Very interesting what is said next.
As if the Force had nothing to do with him.
Mara's correction is what I was speaking of. More like he has nothing to do with the Force.
Yeah, which is interesting because all of our teachings have always been the Force is everywhere. It's everything. It's a part of you. It's a part of everything. But so...
kind of made me think of Palpatine in a way.
Kind of.
Honestly, with the power to basically hide all Force sensitivity. Yeah,
so it's definitely an interesting thing here. But But again, that's basically the end of our little chapter, with Mara and Leia. There is a little bit more here, returning to the planet of Ramamul.
Ramen noodle.
Yeah, Jeez. Never. Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
So, essentially there's like a little rally. There's like a little rally, and we kind of get a little bit in the head of Nominor. I'll read this out here. Nominor loved it all. The adulation and the fanatical boarding on suicidal devotion. He cared nothing for Ramamul. Or its inhabitants. So is he from here?
Kind of makes you wonder.
We'll get to it. Cared nothing for the foolish cries for some ridiculous, simpler life. So he doesn't care. He doesn't care about their cause.
No. He's just having fun, essentially.
But how he loved the chaos his words and followers inflicted upon the order of the galaxy. How he loved the brooding undercurrent of resentment toward the New Republic and the simmering anger aimed at the Jedi Knights, these super creatures of the galaxy.
Wouldn't his superiors be pleased?
Who are his superiors, man?
Very, very intriguing.
Yeah, we have so much to get in here as time goes by, but yeah, who are his superiors? Why does he love the chaos? I would, at this point, he can't be from this planet. He doesn't care about them. He calls them inhabitants, not his species, not his people. He doesn't care about them. So that was funny.
You do actually get to see the fate of C9PO.
Yeah, that's right. They're dragging him, and they have a pit. They basically have this big droid dumping pit. So it's very, very strange. And
he has these people so riled up, he actually convinces them for an entire day and night to stone these droids.
Yeah, yeah. There's a signal given, and they just start stoning the droids, and that brings us to the end of Chapter 1. Man, a lot of information in this chapter. And what we're going to do is when we head into our next episode and our next chapter, we'll give a recap of the prior chapter and kind of maybe do a little discussion. But just final thoughts on this, man. What did you think about this chapter? It's pretty long.
Yeah, as far as the general book goes, a 20-page chapter is quite long, especially for an opener. I thought there was a very good amount of setup in this chapter, especially with the characters of Mara and Jaina.
Yeah, I was glad to see them jump right into getting Jaina out there, getting Mara out there,
and starting with Leia is always a good spot.
Yes,
and Nominar, I think they gave you just enough information from him to be very curious and start speculating. I think if you didn't read forward, you could probably come up with 20 different theories on whether or not he's a Sith Lord and this and that.
Well, yeah, that's definitely something. I mean, we need to know who these superiors are. Who does he answer to? That should be the one of the big questions.
You kind of cut out being a Sith, I guess, when you think about it, because superiors, unless we're...
Well, you never know.
I mean, we're not operating on the rule of 2 if that's the case.
Well, the rule of 2
kind of goes by the wayside after.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of in a different time right now, but we'll see. It should be a lot of interesting stuff to continue to look at here. I think we've probably yacked your ears off enough here with this, but just to leave you with a couple thoughts here. Interesting chapter. Definitely got a lot of names out there, and I think as we go along, we definitely have some answers that we need to have answered. Some questions that we need to have answered. Goodness, I've been talking too long. So any final thoughts?
Interested to see. I don't know if I mentioned this or not. This is actually my first time reading this specific series.
You've read a couple of them, though.
I've read a couple, but it was a long time ago because
you
had them, so I read them from your collection.
Correct,
but I'm pretty excited because it's like almost reading it first time. I don't remember how they went, so
right.
Very, very excited. They do a very good job of, from chapter to chapter in this book, getting you really pumped up
Yep.
and they switch around characters a lot, so you're always wanting more than what you get.
Agreed. But yeah, guys, we appreciate you stopping by. Again, if you're listening to this via the podcast form, make sure you've hit subscribe on whatever network you're using in order to get the podcast downloaded to your device of your choosing as we put them out. We'll be putting these out on Mondays, I believe. Also, make sure you check out all social media, Facebook, hit that like button so you can get updates on things we're doing there, memes, current content, anything we're putting out there, we'll be updating via Facebook. If you have any questions, comments, theories, anything like that, feel free to message us on Facebook. Again, that's the Contiengecy Plan Podcast if you want to look us up. And also make sure to head on over to YouTube and hit the subscribe button there. And I glossed over the email address there sometimes when I get to talking, but tcplanpodcast@gmail.com. You can also send us communiques there. And then finally, if you'd like to support the show, make sure you check out Podbean. And all that just goes right back into what we're doing. Oh, I said
Patreon.
Yeah, he was signaling. Yeah, I meant to say, I don't know why I keep messing that up, but yeah, no, you can go over to Patreon. I mean, you can go to Podbean, but
you won't be supporting us. You'll just be enjoying the content.
Yeah, I mean,
to an extent, you are, because we do want to know
subscribe.
that we do want to know that someone is actually listening to this. That we're not just talking to ourselves here.
Well, you never know.
Person. If we can reach one person,
just
with our
that one
words.
person, we're good. So yeah, no, we appreciate you guys stopping by. And may the Force be with you.
All right, guys. Have a great day.